You keep saying, God, speak to me. You cry for his voice. You ask for his guidance. You post quotes about hearing God. You wear shirts that say, just Jesus. You beg for confirmation. You say you're desperate to know his will. But the truth is, you're not listening. You don't want his voice. You want his validation. You don't want direction. You want permission. You don't want a word that corrects you. You want one that comforts you. You keep asking God to speak, but your ears are already tuned to everything else. You scroll for hours, but can't sit still in his word for 5 minutes. You binge content that numbs your spirit and then wonder why your discernment is dead. You fill your life with so much noise, notifications, opinions, entertainment, distractions, that the voice of God has been drowned in the chaos you created. You keep saying, God's silent, but maybe he's not silent. Maybe you've just been too loud. John 10:27 says, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. So if you're not hearing his voice, you have to ask yourself, are you really following? Because sheep follow their shepherd. They don't scroll past him. They don't ignore him. They don't delay obedience while asking for more clarity. They move when he speaks. But you question, argue, stall, and pretend you didn't hear it. You want God to shout over your compromise, but he won't. You want him to compete with your idols, but he can't. You expect him to whisper over the static of your rebellion and call that intimacy. But the voice of God doesn't land on hardened hearts and cluttered minds. He speaks, yes, but he speaks clearly to the surrendered. He speaks consistently to the quiet. He speaks boldly to those who obey. You're not waiting on God's voice. He's waiting on your attention. You keep saying, God, speak to me. But you won't listen because deep down, you already know what he said, and you didn't like it. He told you to let go, but you held tighter. He told you to repent, but you justified. He told you to be still, but you kept striving. He told you to forgive, but you kept rehearsing the pain. God's not ignoring you. He's just not repeating himself. You don't need a new word. You need obedience to the last one. You don't need a louder voice. You need a quieter life. You don't need another confirmation. You need to finally walk in what he already said. Because the voice of God doesn't compete, it leads. And if you've chosen comfort over conviction, busyness over stillness, compromise over obedience, don't act surprised when his voice feels distant. You're not being ignored. You're being invited. Back to the secret place. Back to stillness. Back to surrender. You want to hear God clearly? Start by clearing the noise. Silence your phone. Turn off the noise. Shut down the opinions. Detox from the distractions. Learn the discipline of quiet. Because his voice doesn't need volume, it needs space. And the reason you don't hear him isn't because he's absent. It's because your life is too full of everything else. He won't compete with your comfort. He won't shout over your rebellion. He won't override your idols. If you want his voice, you have to want his lordship. You have to want correction more than convenience. You have to crave conviction more than comfort. You have to value his truth over your timeline. You have to desire obedience more than emotional moments. So stop saying, God, speak, when you don't plan to listen. Stop crying for answers you've already been given. Stop asking for direction while running the opposite way. Because God doesn't waste his words on ears that won't obey. If you want him to speak, clear the noise. Kill the idols, shut the door, open the word, and then listen. He's still speaking. The question is, are you still pretending not to hear?